I'm Jay Horton, and welcome to Horror on Tubi. Today I'm talking to the twisted mind behind the transformations of the doctors Jenkins, Michael J. Epstein. How's it going, man?
It's going well. How are you doing today?
Good. That was almost a smooth bring in. I've been having trouble with those. like,
I'm glad. I'm glad that we could, make the jump through the window.
yeah. So, let's start out. Tell us the title of your movie. What is it about?
Sure. Yeah. So it's called the transformations of the Doctors Jenkins, which is a intentionally confusing and complicated title. We did not SEO optimize when we decided to SEO for the thing, but the premise is basically that during a pandemic we were pretty bored. There was a group of us who had kind of a chat going on, and we would just talk every day about not being able to make stuff and wondering when we would have a chance to make something again. And we had this idea. We were just kicking around various ideas. We had this idea about what it would be like to see a bunch of different filmmakers make the same movie. It would be interesting to see what the different approaches were, the different ideas were. And so we came up, we thought about well, maybe we should get a group of people together and just have them all make the same movie at home during the pandemic. And then we could maybe put out an anthology or do something like that. But we thought that's too kind of straightforward an idea. So, and also they'd be influenced by knowing that other people were doing that, right? So, because you'd say, okay, if everybody's doing it, I'm gonna try to do something outrageous or special. So what we did instead was we came up with a framing conceit where effectively we posted on Facebook pretty much to our filmmaker friends, and we said, would anybody like to participate in an experimental project where we'll send you 2 pages of a script, and you just have to return a movie that you make from the 2 pages of the script. Now, everybody involved then assumes that they're getting different sections of the script. They assumed that it was going to be different pieces that come together, but in fact they were all receiving the same 2 pages. And so none of the participants were aware of this. And then we made a framing device that we shot around it, where we were kind of talking about the process of making the movie, and we came up with a plot or kind of a story around that for why everybody ended up making the same scene. So the movie sort of reveals itself as it goes in terms of what the actual motivation behind the same scene happening over and over again is. And once we completed it, we held a virtual screening with everybody, and none of the filmmakers at that point had any idea that they had all done the same scene. So it's same premise. They're all going in kind of not knowing quite what to expect. And throughout the process, we had also asked them to film behind the scenes materials and kind of their response to the script and other elements. And so we were able to kind of use those in the framing and create what I guess I think is a pretty unique film that gives you insight into kind of how different people approach filmmaking. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. At the very least, it's a very unique experience.
I think that's true.
What was the filmmakers' responses like once they found out?
Very few of them threatened to sue us. No, almost everybody was pretty excited about it. I think there were a couple of people who were like, "Well, okay, it's weird. I was hoping to hear what the story was or what." But I think most of them were pretty excited about it, especially because honestly, I mean, even as somebody who participates in this sort of stuff, you sort of feel like, okay, we've seen those kind of exquisite corpse films where everybody does a segment. That's not that uncommon. Mm-hmm. So they sort of expected that, but then this was a surprise to them. It was like, oh, this makes the project a little different than everything else. It's a little bit of a special idea. And I think they were excited to see, knowing that everybody kind of was working with the same material, they were excited to see, oh, this person also approached it this way, and this one, did something completely different. And just to give some context for the material, we gave them a 2-page script that was intentionally written to be as confusing as possible. In fact, there are 2 characters, both named Dr. Jenkins, and it was purposely constructed in the script so that you had no idea which Dr. Jenkins was talking in a particular moment. And different filmmakers approached it differently. Some had only one Dr. Jenkins talk. Some alternated back and forth between the 2 doctors Jenkins. So it created, really each film sort of has its own quirks and its own context and approach. And we also, we told them if they had any questions about it, they could email, but we had set up, because we wanted to keep the project pure, we set up an AI bot, which at this time, actually, it's funny because now AI chat and everything is much more present. But, we came up with this idea. We said, we have this AI bot that'll be able to answer any of your questions that you have. If you want to know anything about delivery, you want to know anything about the scene. And of course, the AI bot was actually Bob Rose, one of the directors, one of my co-directors.
Oh, that's funny.
And he wrote complete gibberish nonsense back to everybody. Like he refused to answer any questions. And people were very concerned. Some of the filmmakers were very concerned about like continuity. They're like, oh, do we have to wear certain clothing, or because they knew that, they thought that, the character would continue from scene to scene. And we each scene ends with a transformation. We'd say, oh, you're transforming, you're changing, you're transforming. And so I think that was sort of like, people viewed that as like, okay, well, I guess the next scene starts with like the character looking different or something like that. They figured there was some way that would work, but in fact there was no next scene. Anyway.
Right. So I know this is actually a pretty difficult question, especially with so many different filmmakers involved.
Mm-hmm.
But if you were to give an honest take of how it all turned out, how do you feel, without getting into specific?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's a weird movie for sure. So it's not a traditional film, but we were pretty happy with with being able to create something, again, create something unique and create something special. And I love the different takes on it. Some of the filmmakers involved are like pretty serious professional filmmakers, and others, everybody involved is involved in film in some way, but some of them are not necessarily people who shoot their own films or otherwise, or they weren't actors, for example. Like I know there are some segments that it's like, oh, the filmmaker, because it was during COVID, and we told everybody, do this safely. Don't buy anything. Don't use any resources outside of what you have at home. There are some that are like somebody kind of coerced their partner into acting in the scene. And so they're not necessarily a great actor, but I really appreciate like what they present. Like I love seeing, kind of different people with different skill sets and different approaches and different ideas. And so to me, it's just very entertaining. Even the stuff that's like maybe more objectively not as polished or kind of filmmakery, I love some of that stuff even more than some of the polished stuff. I think it's interesting. Again, it's like, what is somebody going to do? And each segment is only about 2 minutes. So, if you find one boring or something, it moves on quickly. And and I was pretty happy with how we were able to make the story unfold and tell. It's kind of I describe it as sort of a reverse telling of the story, in the sense that you don't really understand what is happening in the beginning of the film or why it's happening. And it's so these scenes that people shot are intercut with these Zoom chats of the four of us who are the directors and the creators of the project. And each time we pop in with one of those Zoom chats, you get a little bit more of like what's going on revealed. Like you start to understand a little more like why everything is happening as it is. And I enjoyed Kate McCoid, one of those four directors. She kind of edited the whole thing together and put it together and decided how the flow would work. And I'm really happy with what she was able to do to kind of how that story unfold. So yeah, I don't know. It's an experience for people. It's certainly not going to be a film that's like for everyone who watches kind of normal narrative films or expects something standard. But
right. Yeah. Well, I guess that brings me to my next question about how you got the movie on Tubi and how something like this is like kind of perfect for something like that.
Yeah, it's really, this is really great that we now have opportunity to use a service like Film Hub. So we did it through Film Hub. And it's really excellent because we output the movie. I'm pretty good at delivery at this point. It's interesting because everybody shot on different cameras and different devices, and we didn't tell them anything about aspect ratio. We didn't tell so we had to write kind of notes that are like, we know this that has different aspect ratios. I was careful about adjusting the frame rates and stuff to make sure it didn't do any ghosting or other elements like that. So doing the QC side of this was a little bit tricky, but we were able to make something that worked, and it passed the Film Hub QC. So we uploaded the Film Hub, and Film Hub has sent it to several channels, and Tubi is really great because it's one of the channels that really at this point is taking a lot of content. I think they take most content as long as it's relatively. I think as long as it passes QC, it probably will end up there. Yeah. And that's really exciting because we have, an opportunity to show it to people, and there's a little bit of a revenue stream from that as well. So yeah, so we did everything through Film Hub in this case.
Great. Okay. So I guess this is kind of a difficult one, but what was the most challenging aspect of putting the whole thing together?
Just I think coordinating and chasing down all the people to deliver, especially when we aren't supposed to be talking to them. Really, it's supposed to be all through this AI bot. Just getting 25 people to do anything is a little bit tricky, but people were pretty good about delivering. And then I didn't. Kate did the hard work of trying to figure out like what is we all discussed the sequencing and everything because we wanted what is the order of these weird versions of this film? That's an open question. And then where, how do we interject ideas into that? But Kate really did the hard work of like, how do you make a movie out of this pile of stuff that we have here? So for me, it was I didn't have a hard time doing anything. It was just really, it was honestly, I mean, it was the most, sort of fun and simple project that I've ever done because so little of it was labor that was kind of on my end. We're as we're used to doing so much labor in terms of shooting and then doing the post-production process is very lengthy and very complicated. In this case, none of that was really true. It was just kind of like once we knew the sequence and Kate kind of put together the rest, it was like there it was, deliver the movie and go.
Right. How long was the whole process from start to beginning? Was this about a year? Was it?
I don't think it was quite a year. It's hard for me to remember exactly. I want to say less than 6 months, like a little bit less than 6 months, because we kind of told people that they only had a month to film initially, so we did it pretty fast, and we shot our zooms and stuff. We basically did a day where we shot everything. And then I think Kate started cutting together the movie, and then we realized, oh, okay, we need some more material here. So then we shot some additional zooms. We shot additional individual videos of us kind of talking. Because everybody was asked to do with this kind of vlogging, like I had mentioned, doing kind of behind the scenes and vlogging about it. And then we sent out to all the filmmakers. We said, we'd like you all to do a little vlog about how you felt about the script. Like, tell us what you thought about the script. Okay, do a little vlog about like what you thought about, different aspects. And so we as we cut together the movie, we thought, okay, that would be interesting to kind of interject this other element into it. So we would ask for like, more materials from everybody a little bit. But it wasn't a very lengthy process, and everybody was shooting quickly. And we kind of told them like, this is not, you're not making a masterpiece here. It's not like you should be spending 2 years, shooting your 2-minute scene. Just kind of whatever you have at home, whatever people, whatever resources. Just, take the script and make your best attempt at creating it.
Right. So. And you kind of did this like in the middle of finishing up Smash and all of that. So like, was this was just kind of like, we want to get like something done.
Yeah, because the Once and Future Smash, which is our feature that's kind of on the festival circuit right now, we're working on distro for that. It was kind of on pause because we needed to get together with people in person to shoot that, and during the pandemic we were kind of cautious about not wanting to put anybody at risk, at least at the pre-vaccine era. Once we had vaccines, we started thinking about what was safe enough to work with. But yeah, so we were waiting on that, and we were everybody, all the 4 of us who are filmmakers, and I think everybody involved, all the 20 plus actual segment filmmakers, we were all kind of sitting at home like, oh, we wish we could be creating stuff. So I think, while we're sitting there twiddling our thumbs, this is an opportunity to make something kind of for fun.
Yeah. So do you watch like Tubi as a viewer? Is that a service that you use?
I watch Tubi all the time. Yeah, I mean, I love seeing indie stuff on there. I love seeing. I think a lot of studios are kind of dumping catalog stuff on there that they just don't really know what to do with. So you get a lot of like really strange films on there. I mean, including stuff that's like VHS rips, like really bad transfers of stuff. But a lot of like really obscure films end up on there. I was watching some 70s TV, like celebrity TV variety show specials. Like I think they had the Paul Lynde Halloween specials on there. I mean, just stuff that like you would think is buried in a studio vault, never to emerge again, has ended up on Tubi. And it's kind of exciting. I mean, they also have, mainstream kind of normal films, which is fine, but I like digging and seeing the really strange stuff. I think it's really great that the depth of the catalog is so it's such an expansive catalog, especially when streaming services are paring back more and more and having fewer and fewer films. And even something like Amazon, where it used to be, as filmmakers, we all used to just get our stuff on Prime in a sort of automatic way. And now it's very hard to get indie films on Prime. So their catalog is much, much smaller, and you can't really find obscure or strange stuff. So I think Tubi is right now, to me at least, the home of all the indies and all the really kind of weird, obscure things. So I really enjoyed that a lot.
Yeah. Do you think that they'll eventually? Do you think they'll start paring that down?
I do. I suspect that someday our presence, like all this stuff, will no longer really be available on Tubi. I suspect that someday they'll decide to do a different type of curation where it's a little more focused and has fewer titles. But maybe not. I mean, I hope not. I hope they'll continue to have this massive catalog and just think of it like, here's a repository of like every film that anybody wants to be on the service could be there. And maybe we won't end up in the recommendations, right? So as an example, I mean, maybe there's a sidetrack a little bit. This might answer a future question, but when we first started having stuff on Tubi a couple of years ago, our previous one, we have a film called Blood of the Tribids that's on Tubi, and that used to make like thousands of dollars a month on Tubi. It was making quite a lot of money. It was quite high in the recommendations and such. Now, with Jenkins and even with Tribids and other films, it's a little bit harder to break into those upper recommendations because there's so many films on the site. So it's a little bit more like if you're getting traffic there, it's a little bit more self-driven. So we're really more getting like viewers who we're sending over to the site. So that's a little bit, I don't want to say it's I guess it's a little bit disappointing in the sense that you're not getting as many eyeballs, but it's still exciting to be on a service where people have access to it, at least in the US. It's not available in the UK. So Kate, who edited it, lives in England, and she wanted to like recommend it to all of her friends to watch, and she's like, they can't watch Tubi. It's not available here.
Yeah, I can't believe it's still not. They've been talking about opening it up there forever, but it still hasn't happened.
No, only EU. Well, I don't know if it's in Canada or North America or whatever, but it's not.
I think it's
not
in Canada.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's the recommendation thing. It seems like it's working like just the way Amazon's did. So like even when Amazon stopped taking all the indie stuff, like I still had a lot of stuff that was left up there, but like I can't even search a lot of the titles anymore. Like they're there, but I could type in the title, doesn't come up. I could type in the title, my name still doesn't come up. Like I have to like type in, I think I had to type in my name alone, and then I found a list, and it was like a couple of them are at the very bottom. Really hard to search.
So you pretty much just have to direct link it at that point.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's odd that those a couple of those movies still make a little bit of money. I'm guessing that like because the algorithm is showing people similar projects, so I would assume that's how it's getting done. But
right. Yeah. It is always fascinating to see what projects come up as similar especially to Jenkins, for example, because you're like, I don't think anything is really similar to this, but it is interesting. There are a few kind of low budget horror movies that show up as kind of similar to it, so I guess that's fine. I mean, that works.
What was the movie that like Heath Ledger died on, where he was
the Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus,
right? I mean, totally different thing, but the way that they changed the characters reminded me a little bit of it.
Right.
That'd be an all right connection.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, any connection is all right for me. I wouldn't argue at all about anything, but yeah.
What was it like shooting something completely remote, like completely, like not having, direct connections with, I mean, anyone, right?
Yeah, no, not at all. Yeah, I mean, for us, like we shot our segment at home, and my partner Sophia, who is your DP on Craving, so you know that she
I've
can.
I've heard of her.
You've heard of her. You know she can. She has the capability to film things. So so we had no problem, filming our segment at home. But doing the Zooms was interesting because we had some technological questions. We're like, what is the approach to this? And we actually we recorded our audio independently. So in other words, we set up our systems to record. So I had a mic. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I wore I think a lav mic, or had a boom mic, and recorded audio directly to my audio recorder device, separate from the Zoom itself.
Right.
And each of the four of us did that, and then we tried to like deal with syncing it later, and realized that Zoom actually does a lot of things with like flex time, where it moves time around, and it doesn't. When we were trying to resync things, the video looks out of sync because it stutters frames. It does all kinds of stuff it's not really designed for filmmaking. I mean, it's the right. Purpose of it is like, to chat with people, and it's okay that the sync is off, or it's stuttering, or it's doing other kinds of strange things. But when we were trying to put together the film, it was driving us a little crazy just dealing with the sort of technologies of it. But we did our best with it. We did honestly, when I was doing some of the sound sync later at the end, I was moving audio back and forth. I would sync it, but I'd be like, it doesn't look good, and I'd move the audio back and forth till it looked better, even though it wasn't actually synced to the original audio. It ended up looking better, like delayed a second, because the video was off.
Yeah. I've found that doing these interviews, sometimes I'll edit later and I'll find the same thing, because I record third party. And now they're actually, I guess a little plug for StreamYard, they're actually letting you do independent video even now. Okay, so I usually don't like to ask people to do it, but you can set up and they'll record them both, and you can put them together. So you'll lose all those dropped frames or freezes or
right. Yeah, it's a tricky. That's the only tricky thing technologically of shooting, from different locations. And I know. Host, I think that's the film that they did the Zoom. They had a very, again, same kind of thing. They had a very elaborate system for shooting that involved actual cameras, and they weren't using Zoom really for shooting it. And we really did use Zoom for shooting all those scenes. I think it's okay because we're also used to looking at Zoom that we sort of tolerate, and that's part of the experience. It's literally a bunch of Zoom calls, so I think it works okay, but it definitely was a technological barrier to the kind of, we wanted it to be a little more perfect than we could make it, given the technology.
Right. So how are you approaching marketing it?
It's been really hard because it's sort of like, what is this movie? What do we tell people? We've kind of, we told all the filmmakers share it. Obviously, there's 25 or so filmmakers involved, so everybody kind of shares it, tells their friends to watch it. And it's been really interesting to see. We just had a renewed kind of push the last few days to share it. And it's been really interesting to see people watching it and having a response to it, because, and especially people who are like not filmmakers the response is pretty good. I mean, I think overall, it's been pretty good, and people, you hear the same dialogue over and over again. So people start really catching on. There's one line that says, where they say, "Dr. Jenkins wants the juice." And, I have friends who I see only occasionally, and as soon as I see them, they're like, "Dr. Jenkins wants the juice." Like it's like become like a sort of a tagline for people. So that's really fun. And yeah, having people experience something unique and new is really fun. We had a world premiere at the Genre Blast Film Festival, and so we got to see it on a big at an Alamo Drafthouse in Virginia on the big screen, which is the film is not really made for big screen projection necessarily, but it looked great. It was really fun, and it was really interesting to hear the audience reaction to that, because they really had no idea,
right?
And they're sort of trapped. They're sort of like locked down. You can't get out of it at that point. But no, the response has been very positive. It's certainly not a movie for everybody, but we got a bunch of reviews that loved it. At the festival, one of the, I think it was Morbidly Beautiful, wrote up their favorites of the fest, and it was like their #1 favorite of Genre Blast.
wow.
And Genre Blast has a lot of great films, so that's not like, that was a surprise for us. So yeah, I mean, the response has been great. The festival, playing the festival is great. Getting to see people sharing it kind of online is really interesting. In terms of marketing, otherwise, it's like hard to, I don't know how to advertise it exactly.
Yeah, I know. I was just thinking while we were talking, I was like, I never saw a trailer for this. I was like, how do you do a trailer?
We did a trailer. Yeah,
I'm sure you did. I just didn't see it.
We did. It's actually called the contractually obligated trailer for the transformations of the Doctors Jenkins. And the trailer itself is a new film. It's actually a totally separate film about how we're legally, because in the film, in the Jenkins film, there's a plot line about how we're on the hook legally for like $1 million if we don't deliver the film. There's a whole premise for it. So the trailer is actually about how because we all hate each other by the end of the film. That's part of it. The trailer is all of us getting together again while we still hate each other, because we're contractually obligated to provide a trailer for the film.
Oh, that's awesome.
So we discussed. So the trailer is us discussing possibilities for what the trailer should be, basically. So it's awesome. Its own. It's kind of like a mini. It's like a mini film version in the spirit of the full film.
That's great. Yeah. Oh, that does. All right, man. Well, thanks so much for talking to me about this one. Yeah. I watched it late last night. I'm actually going to go watch it again.